Warrant for Dean's arrest says the officers never identified themselves as police officers when they went to the back of the home. The victim's 8-year-old nephew told investigators his aunt grabbed her gun from her purse and pointed it at the bedroom window when she heard something outside. Dean's partner told police she could only see Jefferson's face through the window when Officer Dean fired a single fatal shot into the home. The chief says Dean has not yet given a statement to police. Chief Kraus was visibly emotional today, describing the impact of this case on other Fort Worth officers.
They're out there trying to build these relationships, and I likened it to a bunch of ants building an anthill, and then somebody comes with a hose and washes it away, and they just have to start from scratch and build over. I think that's going to be all. Thank you.
Yes, he's going to take his punishment, but the system failed him. Whoever senior was with him, who out with him failed him. Whoever sent him out failed him. The training failed him.
Tatiana Jefferson's brother wants a complete review of the department's training procedures, something the family discussed in a private meeting with Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price this afternoon. Price has called for a full review of the department by an outside agency. Fox 4's Sean Rabb has perspective for us tonight on police training and oversight. Sean.
Clarice, this could be a pivotal moment in the history of the Fort Worth Police Department. The department's willingness to have someone else come in and tell them what's right and what's wrong is not only what it needs to do right now, but a man who has taught law enforcement for 2 decades says it's what they have to do.
When you have a situation where somebody dies that you believe died at the hands of somebody that was careless, that perhaps did not focus on what he was supposed to be focusing on, was not reflective of the training, you've got to come figure out what's going on in your house, because something's broken.
Straight talk from a man who's taught a lot of cops.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Dr. Alex Del Carmen, criminologist at Tarleton State University.
I call law enforcement 100 hours of boredom, 1 second of terror. And it's that 1 second of terror that we train police officers constantly so that they have that muscle reflex that they react to right away.
And in that 1 second Saturday morning, Aaron Dean did not react the right way. Never identifying as police, shouting, "Show me your hands," and shooting almost at the same time.
Put your hands up, show me your hands.
We have to go back to the recruitment of the individual before we even talk about training. Although training is important, through my perspective, right, so we have to ask ourselves, what went wrong?
Dean, who resigned before being fired, was arrested and charged with murder, had 1,451 hours of training, more than twice the state requirement to become a police officer. He'd been on the streets 18 months.
We hope that the officer responds to the scenario in the same way that they did in that controlled environment, but sometimes things go south and police officers either forget their training, or they panic, or they act differently, and it's very difficult to recreate that in a simulated scenario.
Fort Worth Interim Police Chief Ed Kraus saying his department will be reviewed, but without being specific on who will handle that audit.
We're looking at bringing in an independent third-party group to come in and evaluate our policies, our practices, and our training to ensure that we are above best practice standards.
Del Carmen, who's trained over 15,000 officers, and just this week, chiefs of police, says everything must be reviewed.
And so what I say is, let's look at recruitment. Let's look at training. Let's look at whether or not the training is effective. Let's look at simulating those real-life scenarios in circumstances, maybe improve their simulation, maybe improve their use of force training. Look at their policies. Look at what their field training officers are actually teaching them once they get out in the streets.
And Fort Worth's also planning to create a police monitor position now. Dr. Del Carmen's been a federal monitor in New Orleans and Puerto Rico. That monitor, he says, proactively and reactively reviews what a department is doing, sometimes supportive, sometimes not, in hopes of making that department better. Austin, Clarice, currently operating with a police monitor.